Hello there, Kaneisha Grayson, founder and CEO of The Art of Applying here with an amazing, outstanding, super exciting client case study here. I'm just going to say that I already know this is going to be one of our most popular client case study videos ever. And why is that, Armin? What are we celebrating today?
Yeah, we're celebrating a couple of things. So I guess first of all, hi everyone, my name is Armin. And a couple of things that we're celebrating are I was admitted to Stanford for the Master's of Science in Management Science and Engineering. And I was also fortunate enough to receive the Knight-Hennessy Scholarship.
Amazing, amazing. And for people who don't know what the Knight-Hennessy Scholars program is, tell us what that is.
Yeah, at a high level, it's essentially a fully funded graduate degree at Stanford. Of course, there's a lot more that comes with it other than the funding. It's a really rich and robust program that provides its cohort with multidisciplinary training and leadership training, and really gives you an opportunity to work with students across the campus, just industry experts, develop your skills as a leader across disciplines, and of course in your own discipline as well. So it's a combination of all of that training and that guidance, that mentorship, as well as really just providing you with the funding for your degree.
Wonderful. And I will hazard the guess that the Knight-Hennessy Scholarship is one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive graduate scholarship in the world. I would say that because it's Stanford, which everybody loves. It's fully funded. It's degree agnostic, and the people that apply for the Knight-Hennessy Scholars program are just extraordinary. And so you are one of those extraordinary applicants who got into Stanford and got the Knight-Hennessy Scholarship. And I'm really excited to talk to you just about your journey today. Armin, did you apply to any other schools, or did you sign up, work with us, and say, I'm applying to one school?
I just applied to the one. I think my journey is maybe a little bit different than some folks who apply to grad school. I finished my undergrad a number of years ago, and I've been working in the tech industry for quite a while since. And so in pursuing graduate studies, I was very clear on what I was trying to get out of grad school and going back to grad school. And for that reason, there was really just the one school and the one environment that I thought was perfect. So I figured I would just pour everything into that one. But I know that's quite uncommon. I think usually folks have a lot of different options. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And I'm always a little bit itchy when clients only apply to one school, but I myself only applied to Stanford, HBS, and the Kennedy School. So I had a similar approach for my graduate school application, and it worked out for you. So just thrilled for you and just can't wait to share more of your journey. Armin, tell us the stats that you feel comfortable sharing about your applicant profile, and as specific as possible. They want to know cultural background, age, where you went to college, what you studied, GPA, test scores, years of work experience, just all those bullet points. Like, am I going to get in? Because they want to be able to compare themselves to you.
So I guess we could start with maybe academics. My undergraduate degree was in computer engineering. I graduated with distinction, so I had an A average in that degree. And while I was in the industry, I also started taking some of the courses in the master's program that I ended up applying to. And so when I applied, I also had a transcript that showed them, hey, I've taken some of your graduate courses that are requirements if I were to matriculate. And I had a 4.0 across those. So I think that also helped illustrate that I can handle the academic rigor of their program. In terms of work experience, after graduating, I had, at the time of applying, maybe 6 years of full-time experience working in the tech industry across like big tech companies as a product manager and a product leader. And so I think that kind of experience plus the academic background tailored really well towards what I was trying to get out of grad school. And I tried to illustrate that in my statement of purpose as well. That's a bit of the background in terms of what I did academically and professionally.
Wonderful. And what about your personal life are you open to sharing? So things like, first, I just want to clarify that you are an international applicant, right, from Canada? Yes. And if you feel comfortable sharing, I would love for you to share just a little bit more about your family's cultural background as well.
My parents were immigrants, and so I grew up as, I guess, a first-generation Canadian. And I found you because navigating everything is really difficult, and having help to really understand the process is extremely valuable. There's a right path for everyone. There's definitely not one right path for everyone. For me, from a young age, I just knew that the academic and the educational realm was just where I was most excited and where I feel like I grow the most. And so whether it's an undergraduate education or graduate school, it's definitely the right environment for me. So I never had any doubts about that, but it was really just more so, how do I navigate this process because there's definitely an art to how you illustrate your journey and what you're trying to do. And you have so few words, so few essays, and you definitely want to make sure that you're focusing on the right parts of yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And I love the way you said that like education is the realm in which you thrive. And that is actually my personal experience too. My parents went to college, but they didn't go to graduate school, and they applied to and went to the one college that gave them a scholarship. So they're not even super familiar with the college application process. But school was really the catalyst for every major opportunity I've had in life, including starting this business. Like I really got the business idea while in graduate school. So yeah, I really identify with this idea of school as the ideal incubator. Awesome. What was the application process like before we started working together? What was difficult? What wasn't working?
One of the interesting things about applying to Knight-Hennessy and Stanford is you have two completely different application processes that you have to do almost in parallel. I think the Knight-Hennessy deadline was maybe a month earlier than my actual program deadline, but that's pretty close. And so you have a different set of questions or essays almost that you have to write for Knight-Hennessy, and then obviously your statement of purpose and a couple other optional ones for your actual graduate degree. At the end of the day, a lot of the questions are trying to get a better idea of where you came from, who you are, how that's crafted, what you want to do, and what is it exactly that you want to do. And then, of course, why is Stanford and why is Knight-Hennessy going to help enable that? And then on top of that, there's a lot of miscellaneous things in the application that I had no idea if this was like something that I should worry about. One example, for instance, is when you're applying, there are questions like, are you applying anywhere else? What are your funding opportunities or funding options? And I remember going through those and thinking, are these trick questions? If I say I'm not applying anywhere else, is that really bad? But I don't want to be dishonest. I'm not applying anywhere else. And it doesn't ask why or why not. So my answer would just be, no, I'm not applying anywhere else. And then I wasn't sure if that was meant to like illustrate something. Same with funding. I don't have other funding opportunities. And if this doesn't work out, I'll apply for the loan. Is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? Even things like that might seem innocuous, I just really wasn't sure about. And I didn't want to leave anything to chance. I thought a lot about why this school, why this program, and I did not want to leave anything to chance. So there were questions like that where I was like, I need help. I need guidance from someone that really understands this. And then there was also just a much bigger thing for me, which is I have a lot of different components to my story, to what I've been through in life and where I want to go. And I just knew that there was no way in a few hundred words or whatever the limit was that I could really just give everything justice. And so I had to be really structured. And so what I wanted was an opportunity to just be able to talk to someone and say, okay, you don't know me. Let me just walk you through my story. Does this make any sense? And so that was the biggest thing that I really just needed help with, helping me essentially ensure that I'm crafting the right story and that it makes sense.
Wonderful. And how did you find the art of applying, and what inspired you to reach out to us?
It was videos that you had done with previous Knight-Hennessy scholars that you worked with. Because when I was going through the applications, I saw Knight-Hennessy's due first and then my program. So I was like, all right, first let's focus on Knight-Hennessy. Let me learn as much as I can. And then as I was just looking things up online, I came across your videos. I think you had done two of them, two previous recipients that you had worked with. And it was really those videos that made me go, okay, Kaneisha and her team know how to navigate this process, obviously, with great success. Let me just send them an email, set up a call, and just tell them what my goals are, tell them what I'm applying to, why I'm applying, and see if there's something that they could help you with.
And I know it was a long time ago, but if you can remember, what was your experience like on the breakthrough call? The breakthrough call is the long call where we have the first short little call, then we have that long call.
Yeah, I think for me, it was really reassuring because, like I said, I think given the amount of years I've been out of school before reapplying to grad school, there was a question in my mind of, is the way I've approached this the wrong way? Have I waited too long? Is someone with the kind of profile I have just not going to work out? And so part of my breakthrough call was really discussing, here's what I've been doing in the industry and where I want to go longer term and why I think grad school is the right approach and why I think being a Knight-Hennessy scholar can really help catalyze that. Do you think that this is a story worth telling or worth applying with? And I think the breakthrough call is really just like reassuring because obviously your team has worked with so many people that I got reassurance of, yeah, like there's a lot of different types of people who apply, right? And so for me, it was just like knowing, okay, the approach I'm trying to take makes sense and it's not a deal breaker. And at the same time, this individual that I'm chatting with on the call is reminding me that there are so many different types of people that apply, that there is no one path. So for me, it was a good reminder of confidence, especially as the deadlines were looming. And I was just thinking so many essays I need to write and so many stories I need to restart. To summarize, to answer your question, I went in being a little unsure about whether or not the path I'd taken made me a deal breaker for this process, and I got reassurance. No, definitely a path forward.
Yes, yes. I like that reassurance. And I would say some of the things that we're endeavoring to give or provide to people on the breakthrough call is certainty that we can help and we believe in you, clarity about where you are now, like what's working, what's not working. That's why we ask you so many questions. And then the confidence that if we do work together, the things that we dreamed about together on the call can and will actually happen. And so I think you're a perfect example of that. And that's also why it is so important to me to do these videos, is because I do want people to have stories to balance out the kind of intimidating, scary numbers that they see on the school websites. And I'm glad the schools publish those numbers of the incoming profile of the class and things like that. But there is nothing like hearing from somebody who felt the way that they feel now, that's the way you were just feeling a year and a half ago. And so it just means a lot to me that you are sharing your story, because there is someone Armin shaped at 2 a.m. watching this video and just being like, okay, maybe this can happen for me. There's no way to convey that with numbers and stats. Armin, after your breakthrough call, I'm really glad that you got reassurance, but were you nervous or scared to work with us? What doubts or concerns did you have?
I don't think so. The biggest thing that I really needed help with was twofold. One was the thing I mentioned earlier around like miscellaneous questions, or is this a trick question on the application about like other schools, other funding, etc. Those were easier, right? I just wanted to talk to someone rather than relying on online threads where people provide their inputs, where you don't really know if someone has the expertise behind the confidence of their post. I wanted to ensure I was asking someone that obviously was an expert and understood. But the much bigger thing for me was just knowing that I would be able to communicate with someone and take all the jumbled up thoughts in my head around the things I wanted to talk about and see if it made any sense. And the breakthrough call made me realize that no matter who I talked to or worked with on your team, that they would be really well equipped to help me distill and at least clarify bits and pieces of my story that I wanted to share that maybe didn't make sense. That was a big thing that I went into it with. And I wasn't really nervous because the breakthrough call was a really good first stab at understanding what I wanted to get out of the process and then hearing from your team. And to anyone, by the way, who's like looking into this process as well, that would be my recommendation. If you can go into that call, at least with like clarity on your goal, I think that helps, because then you could illustrate and you can communicate like, this is what I'm trying to do and trying to accomplish. I'm decently self-aware about where my weaknesses are in terms of getting that done. Can you help me? And I know not everyone's going to have that clarity, but because I went into my first chat with that clarity, it definitely helped me commit and say, you know what, I am confident moving forward with this.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we do in the breakthrough call for people who don't have that clarity is through the questions that we ask, it helps them realize like, oh, I never even thought about that. And so sometimes it can even surface things you don't even know you don't know. So I also just wanted to say that so that people don't feel like they have to like go do homework in order to book a breakthrough call. Because that's another thing that those of us like me and you who are perfectionists can do, is we try to like clean before the maid comes and like do stuff. So just wanted to balance it out with that. Armin, what was your favorite part about being in the application accelerator and working with the art of applying?
It was definitely being able to just talk to on a regular basis. Anytime I wanted to set up a call and chat, I could just do that with whoever on team. People who understood the process really well, because like they've gone through the process, they help people go through the process. And that means anytime I had something I was uncertain about or unsure about, the next day I could get an answer. So I wasn't stuck for weeks trying to figure things out. And that allowed me on my own end to spend basically 99% of my time just crafting my essays. I think I mentioned to you previously when we were chatting, I think for Knight-Hennessy, for the main kind of long essay, I lost track after I think 9 or 10 complete scraps where like I would read through what I wrote. I'm like, you know what, this is just bad. It's not addressing the prompt. It's not doing the story justice. I need to just eliminate everything, delete everything and restart from scratch. And I did that so much. And I think I had the flexibility to do that because of the fact that I could just work with folks on your end to answer any of the other questions and really just make sure I had clarity. I think that was very helpful. And I do also just want to call out real quick too, that one of the real big benefits here is when I was going through the process, I've spoken now to other incoming students in my master's program, as well as obviously other incoming Knight-Hennessy scholars and even just finalists, right? And everyone that I talked to universally had folks that they could bounce ideas off of and work with. And some people are very fortunate because they know people who are in grad school at Stanford in the Knight-Hennessy program, right? And then other folks have to navigate. And some folks try to rely on things like Reddit, which again, you never know who's saying what. And so I think if you're unsure about the process, it's very helpful to find folks who know how to navigate the process because it saves you so much time.
You've really touched on something that I don't feel like we talk about very often in these videos, which is this idea of relieving some of the mental load. So the way you talked about how like being able to just ask any question you needed so that you didn't have to go to the forums or just scour the whole internet left you so much time to write. And I've thought about that clearly as a benefit, but I have never heard it quite articulated the same way, that it just freed you up so much. And I'm actually going through a very similar experience. I recently got engaged. And I'm very excited about that. Thank you. And speaking of Reddit, my fiance used to work at Reddit, and I'm a huge Redditor. But I was spending all this time trying to like Google how to plan a wedding and like trying to do it via forum and Facebook groups. And I was just getting really overwhelmed and discouraged. And honestly, I'd rather be working on my business or writing my novel than Googling about like how to order flowers or whatever. So we just today signed up with a wedding planner after having a consultation call. And there's just huge relief of just feeling like, yeah, I could do it myself. I'm smart enough. But as one client said once to me, you don't get points for doing it the hard way.
Yeah, I think that last point is a really good point. Honestly, what helped me is like I went into this knowing very clearly what my weakness is, which is storytelling. But at the same time, understanding that's such a critical component of applying to any scholarship like Knight-Hennessy and really any graduate school, right? Your statement of purpose is essentially storytelling. And so I knew that I was going to have to do a lot of iterations. And I knew that it would take a while before I was confident in what I produced. And so any way I could eliminate everything else from the process was just a huge value add for me. And I will also add, I don't think I've shared this with you, but I do have a few friends who have gone through grad school before me. And so I actually did pick their brains before, talking to them about the process, any advice they had, et cetera. And they're lovely. I absolutely adore them. They're great. I have nothing but good things to say about them. But I would say the advice didn't assuage any of my concerns or confusions. It was very high level, very specific to their experiences. And I think that's normal. When you have a certain experience, it's going to influence your perspectives and therefore the advice you give folks. And that's one of the big value adds for you and your team, because you've worked with so many different types of people and programs and schools. Your perspectives, your advice, your answers are influenced by breadth and depth. Whereas if you talk to maybe one or two people, it's very little breadth and depth on their experience. And so if you and them have very different backgrounds and goals and futures and aspirations, the advice they give you might be really solid advice, but not super applicable to you.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And I do think it's always very helpful and a wonderful advantage to be able to talk to friends who went to the schools or are at the schools, or even other clients that have worked with the art of applying, what their experience is like at their school. But I also feel that humans tend to often give advice that validates their own life path and decisions they've made. So just kind of how you said, if your life path doesn't really lockstep match theirs, sometimes their advice cannot actually be so great for you, whether it's which schools to apply to, which round to apply in, what to write about in your essays. Somebody might be a little bit more conservative in the kinds of things they share and then discourage you from being vulnerable in your essays, but the vulnerability might be the exact thing that makes the admissions committee fall in love with you. I think that's a great point. It needs to be both and. If one has the resources and the ability to do that, yes, talk to individuals, but then also engage with a community where you can get that diversity of feedback, but also the system, not just a personality giving you feedback. So thank you for sharing that. And Armin, what would you say to someone who thinks that they need to get a strong test score, whether that's the GRE, GMAT, whatever, before they work with us and reach out for help?
Sometimes we default to procrastinating without realizing that we are. So I would definitely encourage folks, don't try to gate progressing in your application or getting help behind perfecting your test scores, or even frankly, getting a first test score. I remember when I had applied and started working with your entire team, I don't think I'd even taken a practice test at that point. Right. So I definitely encourage folks to not really gate it behind that. And I would also add too that test scores are just one component of a broader, more holistic application. At the end of the day, any school, any program you're applying to is looking for a number of different things. One question they're trying to answer is, can this person handle the academic rigor of our program? And that's where test scores are more relevant. And even for that question, though, there are different variables that factor into it, right? Test scores are one of them. So are your grades, your GPA, et cetera. So even if you do take the test, don't get the best score, It's definitely not a deal breaker. There's a wide range of different test scores to get folks admitted to different programs, even at the most competitive schools. I would say definitely don't gate getting help behind perfecting your test scores. Even once you get your test scores, don't feel like your chances are zero if you don't have the best test score.
Yes. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm so glad you remember that you likely hadn't even taken a practice test, because that's a powerful testimony to be like, look, it worked out so well for Armin. It's once again, both and. Yes, work on the test, but we also need to be getting help, getting started, and working on all parts of the application process. Armin, now that you've been accepted into your dream school, the only school you applied to Stanford and the Knight-Hennessy Scholars program, what changes, improvements, transformations, or opportunities does this bring to your life and your career?
That's a really big question. I think the answer is just overwhelmingly positive. I'll take a step back. Between my undergrad and this, the experience I've had in the industry has been in the tech industry, building as a product manager or product leader, different forms of emerging technologies. So across a few different big tech companies, I've worked on a range of things from applied AI to mixed reality and augmented reality devices and software. And I have a really big belief that these sorts of emerging technologies can actually fundamentally change the way we tackle issues like education inequity and even poverty alleviation, and also just help us build stronger communities around the world. A big reason I want to go back to school and also be really involved in the Knight-Hennessy program is I think tackling any of those problems is very complicated. It takes a lot of different disciplines coming together across a number of different years to pull that off. And there's different things that need to be built technologically, procedurally, from a policy standpoint, from a variety of different disciplines. Now I'm in, and I'm going to be starting this process and this program. It's going to really help catalyze that mission that I'm on, this ambition that I have for the world around me, where I know that this education and this community will help provide or strengthen some of the areas where I need to develop a bit more if I really want to make the kind of long-term global impact in these areas. And so I'm just very excited because I really do think that the education and the community, the campus community, as well as the Knight-Hennessy community, is just going to help grow all of that. And then once I'm done with it, we'll see maybe the right path is doing my own thing afterwards or going back to industry with these new skills. But I know long-term, that's something I'd like to see in the world, and that's something I'd like to contribute to. I do really strongly believe that this education, this program, this school, the entire environment is going to help me accomplish that.
Beautifully said. And we need people like you making change, progressing us as a species, and using your time and talents to do so. I'm thankful to you, to your goals, to you being so ambitious and focused on your goal. So Armin, when you started this application journey, who knew you were applying? And then once you got in, and then once you got the Knight-Hennessy Scholarship, who did you tell and what was that like?
Long story short, when I was going through the process of creating the application material, I actually didn't tell anyone other than the folks helping me as my recommendation letters. It's not because I didn't want to tell anyone. It's just because I have this not great tendency. When I get really busy and bogged down, I get in my own head and I just wall myself off so I can focus on what I'm doing. So I essentially forgot. I know it sounds unbelievable. I was so focused on getting these essays written and making sure everything was coherent and made sense that I just forgot. And then once I submitted everything, it was this giant sigh of relief. And then I was like, oh, okay, I have like several months to wait now, I guess, until the results and seeing how things go. And that's when I started telling everyone, I was like, yeah, I applied. We'll see. Don't worry. The odds are really low. So odds are I'm not going to be moving or anything like that. I fully did not expect anything to work out. But I gave folks a heads up after I submitted. That's when I told a lot of my friends, yeah, I applied. We'll see. It is what it is. And then once some of the results started coming in, I found out I was a finalist for Knight-Hennessy. Then I told some of my closest friends, I was like, yeah, it's pretty exciting. The odds are still low, but they're higher than before. So it's a little better now. And then once I got all the results and I found out I got into the program and I got Knight-Hennessy, I shared it with folks in my life.
Yes. Whether you meant to be or not, you're very thoughtful about protecting your energy during your application process, since you do know that you're kind of a heads down person when you have a big goal that you're working toward. You were like, you know what? Let me just get it done, then talk about it to people, so that I don't have a bunch of people asking me, how's it going? How's it going? Did you get in? Did you get in? So I do appreciate that approach. I would love to hear your advice and encouragement for that 2 a.m. person who Googled Knight-Hennessy Scholars, or they Googled Stanford's MS and engineering, whatever they Googled to find this video, but they're locked in now. They've made it this far to the video. They're definitely invested, but just still feeling that doubt, that fear, that worry, that uncertainty. Yes, it worked for him, but he seems so articulate and interesting. I don't know if it'll work for me. What kind of encouragement would you give that person?
Yeah, I honestly think just doing that initial call is a really good first step. I think at a very high level, if we generalize big time here, there's two buckets of folks going through this process. There are folks that are extremely self-aware of where they're going to struggle the most and need help the most, in which case it's prudent to try to find someone who can help you manage those weaknesses in your own process so that you set the best foot forward. And then there's the second bucket, which is folks who might not necessarily know even like where they're going to need the most help or where they're struggling the most, but you know how to help them identify those things. And so it's still worth even doing that chat. My general advice to anyone for anything in life is don't ever be afraid to ask for help. It's very rare that anybody can get through life without needing help for anything. I've personally never met anyone like that. And so there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Worst case scenario, you talk to someone, you think they can help you and you realize it's not a good fit, but at least you looked into it. So I would say just don't be afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely. And I think you did a great job of asking for help. I still remember when you told me you were a finalist, or maybe told me you were in a semifinal, the one stage before. And I was like, okay, it's time to go, you know? And I do feel like you let me be there for you, even for just encouragement, where you're just kind of like, I don't know about this. And I'm like, you got this. It's going to be great. And so I also just wanted to say that asking for help can look a lot of different ways. It can look like booking the call, but it can also look like once you've already made the commitment to be in the program, it can also look like letting us see some of the more tender spots where you might need to borrow some of our confidence, some of my certainty, because I was like, you got this and you're going to get it. But if you don't get it, you know your life and your career is still going to be amazing. I still believe that. I am so proud of you. I am so happy for you. And I'm so happy for the lineage of people that come after you that have watched this video, sign up, do the work, get the help they need, go to their dream schools, and are a part of the like Armin family tree branch of the Art of Applying, because it's definitely going to be a strong one. I know it. And y'all are going to do some amazing things in the world to make the world a more equitable place. So just thank you for sharing your story. And I'm just thrilled for you, and just keep going with everything that you aim to achieve in your lifetime.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I have to thank you as well for all your help throughout this. I think the last part you mentioned is something that's super underrated, which is just the amount of calls we had that were just pep talks. And sometimes you really need that. And yeah, a lot of, I think my calls were just me being like, I really don't know about this. I don't know how this happened. I don't know how this is going to go. And you being like, oh, you got this. I'm like, okay, I believe you, I think. And so ultimately, obviously it worked out. The pep talk aspect and really just helping instill confidence was just like invaluable. It was absolutely tremendous. So yeah, thank you so much for helping me navigate this and giving me the confidence as well to navigate this and to understand that like, even if my profile is a little bit different for someone going to grad school and for the goals I have, like there's a space and a spot for everyone. It's just a matter of figuring out how you want to tell your story and having confidence in that story. And I think that's like the biggest value prop, at least for someone with my weaknesses going into this process.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing your story, Armin.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Are you ready to take your application process to the next level? The Art of Applying helps you get into the graduate school of your dreams and get money to pay for it. Book a free quick call from the link in the description to get started. And subscribe to our channel for more application tips and success stories.